From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. Welcome to the Fall Supersode. It's a different kind of podcast episode with not one, but 5 guests who share brief insights with you that we didn't get a chance to squeeze into the full episodes that we've published with them. Each segment is only 2 to 12 minutes long, so I'd call them power-packed and even nutrient-dense. There are no ads in this episode either. That's one reason we're calling it a Supersode. Plus, Supersode just sounds fun and kind of cool. This is episode 450, and our guests today are Adam Parker, Vani Hari, Judith Schwartz, Laura Villanti, and Mary Holland. At the top of each segment, I'll let you know who the guest is, what they focus on, and where you can find the entire episode. Enjoy. Oh, and by the way, we record mini-sodes like this on a regular basis, and we post them in the members-only space on our website. It's one of the perks of being a Weston A. Price Foundation member, along with our quarterly journal. You can join now at westonaprice.org and use the code POD10 to do so for only $30 a year. Membership means you support our mission of research, education, and activism, and initiatives like this podcast. So thank you for becoming a member. Again, it's only $30 with the code POD10. Go to westonaprice.org and welcome to the family. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. First up is Adam Parker from the Your Ideal Day podcast. Adam was recently featured on episode 444 called How and Why to Detox. In this brief mini-sode, Adam gets specific about binders and their role in helping the body rid itself of unwanted toxins. Welcome to the mini-sode, Adam.
Hilda, it's an absolute pleasure to be on the mini-sode.
So you referred to binders toward the end of our detoxing interview, and I wanted you to go a little bit more in depth. As I understand them, they're almost like escorts that help certain things out of the body. They take the hand of the heavy metal or the particular chemical you're trying to get rid of and escort it out. Is that right?
Yes. So binders are substances that go into our bodies and they will bind on to heavy metals, plastics, all these different chemicals that we end up accumulating in our body and escort them out of the body. Now, there are different binders for different types of toxins. Some binders are just for the gut, and due to the size of their molecular structure, they don't leave the gut. So an example is bentonite clay. And actually, bentonite clay was referenced a lot by Weston A. Price on his tours around the world. So bentonite clay is an amazing binder. And what's also special about bentonite as well, it has a process called cationic exchange where it gives you minerals, pulls out the heavy metals. So that's a really good binder. But then obviously we have toxicity all through the body. We can accumulate it in all the fat tissues in the body, especially the brain. So then you can get products like nanozeolite products, which are able to bypass and go through the digestive tract and go around the body and grab onto those toxins and safely escort them out through the stool. So binders are really useful because as we are doing detoxification processes, we're rustling up these toxins. And again, we need the detox pathway to be open so they can escape, but we also want to get them out as quickly as possible. So that's why we use binders to assist in that process.
But if you don't use binders, does it simply slow down the process or does it actually make it dangerous?
It will slow down the process, and depending on what you're doing, it could make it dangerous. Now, by dangerous, you're just not going to feel great. You're going to feel like you've been hit by a bus. You're going to feel like you've got the flu. It's those types of symptoms. A Herxheimer reaction is flu-like symptoms. You're like, oh my goodness, I feel terrible. So we want to make sure that if we are pulling these toxins from wherever they've been resting, sometimes for years, we want to make sure that they don't redistribute and land somewhere else. And obviously drinking water helps with that process, but we can aid in that assistance by taking binders to grab them, and it's by electrical charge. So binders are negatively charged, toxins are positively charged. They bind together, they're locked in, and they become inert. They can no longer do what they had previously done, and there's only one solution, and that's making their way out through the body, out through the stool.
Now, are there certain binders that you were like, okay, I don't want to play with that one because maybe it's too potent or doesn't have a good reputation?
There are many binders, and as I said, certain binders are better at binding certain things. The worst case scenario with a binder is you take too much and it gives you constipation. There's not going to be a scenario where it does damage. It's just going to block. It's just going to back you up and block you up. Hence why detox pathway is open before we start binding. And then when we're taking the binders, we ease into it. We see how the body feels. How has it impacted my bowel movements, for example? Some of the nano-sized binders, it's water. You're spraying water in your mouth because they're so small, they're suspended in water. So there's no real challenge there with constipation. But, activated charcoal, bentonite clay, if taken too much, can cause you constipation. So it's understanding your body. Everyone's different. For example, with bentonite clay, if you have diarrhea, you can drink the whole thing. You can drink the sediment that falls to the bottom and the water. Whereas for me, normally, I'll shake up the bentonite clay, it will settle overnight, and I'll just drink the milky water. If I was to drink the sediment, it might give me a little bit of constipation, but I don't have diarrhea. So again, it varies upon what's going on with you in that moment, how your body responds to it. But as I said, the worst case is a bit of constipation. The best case is you avoid any of these really uncomfortable Herxheimer reactions that you can get, which is part of the deal with detox.
Yeah.
You will feel a bit off at times, but you offset that massively when you use minerals, as we said, and binders to bind up those toxins.
You offset that feeling, and you also, as you were saying earlier, avoid the resettling of whatever you're trying to get out of the body into some other organ or some other part in your body. So you're really helping expedite the exit of what's unwanted in the body.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being a part of the mini-sode. We appreciate you so much, Adam.
Thank you, Hilda. It's been a pleasure.
Next up is Vani Hari, the food babe, an advocate for real food and an activist defending our food rights. We featured her recently in episode 442, Return to Real Food. In our very mini-sode with Vani, she dives into one more ingredient that we really should be avoiding if we want to protect our children's health. Welcome to the mini-sode, Vani.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we touched on a few of the 10 most terrible ingredients to avoid for your children's diet. Give us a few more. I think we touched on in the main episode MSG-like and MSG additives, food colorings, dyes, and then the number one was the refined sugar. Yeah. What else should we be on the lookout for?
Well, this is a main staple of a traditional lifestyle, and that is the oils that you are using. And a lot of the oils that are in the majority of foods you would buy at a restaurant or in processed foods have been genetically engineered to withstand heavy doses of Roundup, which is unfortunate because Roundup contains a chemical called glyphosate. And glyphosate is now been implicated to cause cancer in several court cases across the United States. And so this is something you want to avoid in your diet, but also the way these oils are produced, and I'm talking about corn, soy, canola, these main oils are produced in a way that they are deodorized, and there's tons of chemical solvents like hexane that are used to extract the oils. Now, hexane is something that is considered a carcinogen, but is also not regulated by the FDA to determine how much hexane residue remains in a lot of these oils. So that's very concerning.
I would say so.
Yes, it's very concerning. Not to mention that because of the fact that they've been so processed, any health quality has been eliminated, virtually eliminated. Yes, they taste good when you fry things in them and they have a very mild flavor, but that's because there's just nothing left in them. And then when they enter the body, that's when it's linked to heart disease, obesity, diabetes. Now they're saying that things that are high in linoleic acid, which is linoleic acid is very high in these corn, soy, and canola oils, even in chicken that's fed GMO corn and soy. Linoleic acid can be really high in chicken that is that way too. But linoleic acid can be also linked to cancer and actually turning on your cancer cells. So this is something that we want to avoid in our children's diets, right? We want to feed them grass-fed butter. Like, when I think about the main thing my kids are eating on top of their vegetables and in their food, when I'm baking things, I'm using grass-fed butter. There's so much amazing, rich vitamin A and so much other fat building properties in terms of like helping their brain generate that, like, it is one of the best things that you could give your child. And so when I think of a child that doesn't like vegetables, I'm thinking about the person that's probably making vegetables that don't taste good. But when you add butter to vegetables, oh my goodness, that's delicious. A little sea salt, Redmond sea salt with all of the added minerals in there. Like, it's delicious. And you can make virtually any vegetable under the sun and use those two ingredients and they can taste good.
It's true. I think Sally Fallon-Morell sometimes says vegetables' main reason for existence is as a vehicle for butter.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
It's really true. And the thing about those oils, as you said, they're linked to cancer. I read a stat recently that said that there's a huge increase in cancer in young adults, and scientists are puzzled as to why this is. I think the answer could be in those oils.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for taking a little bit of extra time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Hilda.
In this next segment, we talk with Judith Schwartz, who spoke with us on episode 440, Cows Save the Planet. I asked Judith point blank in this mini-sode if she thinks eating less meat will help the planet in any way whatsoever. Welcome to the mini-sode, Judy.
Hi, good to see you.
One thing we didn't get to talk about in the full interview was this push to save the planet by eating less meat. If that's not the best way to save the planet, do you have a better idea?
Wow. Well, first of all, the implication that we need to eat less meat suggests that we need to have fewer animals on the land, whereas I say exactly the opposite. We need more wildlife. We need more animals. I mean, if they're domestic animals, we need to have those animals managed well, managed holistically, but we need more life because the more I explore, animals will heal the landscape if we work with them and or if we let them. So, yeah, animals help the water cycle. Animals help the nutrient cycle. So I would say more life.
I see. It is the opposite. And I think Alan Savory also says the animals are our only hope, actually. Why can't we just do the things that they do? I guess we've tried and it hasn't worked out that well, right?
Yeah, well, because every animal has a different way of being, a different role in the landscape, and a different set of knowledge and intelligence in relation to the landscape. And I think it's best that we be humble and honor what other species can do and can teach us.
Well, like the very story you were saying in the full interview about the donkey, right? The donkey was addressing different things and doing different functions to the landscape than the cattle were. So donkeys were needed even if some perceived them as a nuisance. And so when we think, oh, well, we can just do one thing, put these chemicals here and till the soil like that, it's not as diverse as what the animals bring to the table, I would say.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Judy. It has been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you.
We hear from Laura Villanti in this next segment. She and I first spoke on episode 447, How to Tell If You Have Parasites and What to Do About It. She goes deep on the protocols of a few practitioners that she respects in this minisode. She includes one that recommends using pine gum or pine spirits to rid yourself of parasites. Welcome to the minisode, Laura.
Hello. So excited to share on this detailed topic.
So we didn't get to it in the main interview, but I want to know about biofilm. And I think you said ropeworm.
Yes. So there's so many different types of parasites. We've heard of roundworms and flukes and tapeworms and all of this type of thing. But in the last 10 years, there's become much more awareness on what is being called a ropeworm. And so some say it's a parasite, some say it's not a parasite. So it's not really technically a parasite. However, the stuff that leaves the body sure looks like it could be a parasite. So people want to call it a parasite. So we'll call it a ropeworm because that's what it's being called. But it is also a biofilm. So it is, again, not technically one. It's very common today. I can't give you numbers, but I don't know if I could say 80% of us might have some biofilm going in us. And when it's been DNA tested, it's a very sticky mucus-like substance that when it comes out, sometimes if people do coffee enemas, they could maybe see some of this. I had mentioned that the particular herb Mimosa pudica, really exceptional for helping to release this biofilm. But when they've done DNA testing, they have found it has viral, it has Lyme, it's got bacterial components, all of those in it. It's not one thing. So it is actually a community of these organisms, part viral, Lyme, bacterial, that have learned to live together in this mucus-like substance, and it can move throughout the body. So it can even hold parasitic eggs in there. So it's really a mucus-like substance of all of this. And it really does impact health. So many, whether autism, and I did not say that before, but autism is also an area we commonly find parasites play a very big role. Lessening this biofilm load or ropeworm load brings dramatic help and health benefits for many. Could be just Lyme, could be dealing with autism, seizures, any number of things. And so I said the one herb that's really exceptional there for it. And what I'll also share is an advanced enema protocol. This is for the advanced folks that want to really go further. And it's this Professor Gubarev, Gubarev. He first identified these ropeworms many years ago. And then Professor Alex Walensky of Florida, currently, he also does a lot of research on it. So there's a few protocols. You would look up the names Gubarev and Walensky, read about these because you're going to read and learn for yourself because it's going to take great thought, some preparation to do these protocols where you are retaining some things. As I shared before, dairy is a big deal when it comes to parasites. So dairy can even be used to tease the parasites out of the tissues and pull them into the gut. So come back out of that heart, come out of the lungs, come out of the liver, come out of the sinuses, get back into the gut, and then use some herbals thereafter. So it's some very advanced enema protocols and holding enemas a lot longer than anyone's ever held an enema. But this Gubarev protocol can really do amazing work for addressing these ropeworms or biofilms. So it's worth people reading about and considering is this for me?
Have you had some clients use that protocol?
I have not had any clients use that protocol yet, nor have I. Not saying I'm opposed to it, but it literally takes time. You have to have a few hours in a day to actually do it on that day. And it's kind of a graduated protocol. You know, you do that first type, then you'd wait a day or two or such. You could do another type, but you really have to graduate to where you can actually hold that particular one for 2 hours before you graduate. So really, it's not saying you have to take a week of vacation, but no, seriously, perhaps. I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But it's a tool to be aware of.
Well, and I wanted to ask you on a personal note, do you often do cleanses that are less intense or less advanced, or do you simply do all the things you said earlier in the episode about avoiding being a good host, trying to be a bad host that shores up your body in a way that you don't worry about parasites that much anymore?
Sure. So I love all the nutrient-dense food, the fermented foods, the yogurts, supporting liver health, bile health. Yep, do that all. And then in good fortune, somewhere 20 years ago, I got to go on a juice fast retreat with a woman who had recovered herself from lupus. All organs were shutting down. Doctors told her she had really not much time left to live. And here she was, 10 years later. So this was 20 years ago, teaching about juice fasting. So learned about coffee enemas there. So I've been making use of coffee enemas for a couple decades. So I just have not advanced to the Gubarev protocol. If I needed to, I definitely would. But again, logistically, it could really be true. You almost need to take a week or two of vacation to do it.
Yeah. And as you were saying in the longer form interview, people need to pay attention to what their symptoms are, consult with some folks that can help them analyze the best approach and not just take something on because they think I must have parasites. I'm going to do all these things. It's better to be wise about it because I imagine some of these protocols could be quite intense for the body.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I do herbals as needed, like kind of spot on as to what needs to get used. So no, I'm doing herbals as needed. And it would be so wise, really, all of us to once or twice a year do a parasite cleanse. But again, if you're in the category of chronic health issues or you're weak or digestion isn't working or any of those more advanced things, like seek help of someone. But it really is worthy. And I think many traditional cultures had this built in.
Talk to me about the parasite cleanse. You said it would be good for us to do it once or twice a year. Which kind are you referring to?
Herbal, using some of those herbs I described. But again, just pay attention to everything else I said in that your bowels need to be open. You have to have good bile flow, so support the liver. You need to have addressed your heavy metals. Take into account all that. Then, yes, do an anti-parasitic herbal protocol once or twice a year. And then I'll share another one here in this mini-sode is that Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and she's got a protocol she's developed using pine gum, pine oil, pine gum extract, pine gum spirits. So go to her website, which would be called vitalitycycles.com, and you must read all about it because I wouldn't give you the dosing because you're going to read and learn because you have to use this stuff with perfect awareness. But that pine gum, pine oil is amazing for releasing parasites. So it couples in with sugar. You use sugar to attract it, pine gum to kill. But you have to do all your reading. Your bowels have to be open. You have to follow the instructions and be very aware. And again, if you're a chronic health person, you're not going to jump into doing this. That would be way too much to do at the start.
Got it. Thank you so much for that resource. And in closing, I want to ask, you said many traditional cultures included some kind of cleanse as part of their healthy lifestyle or healthy traditions. Do any come to mind?
Oh, yes. So this was 15 years ago. I'm at a gym. I would do yoga. And in the locker section I was in, there's this lovely Pakistani woman who I became friends with. And she was older than me. So I love traditional wisdom and all this stuff. So I don't know, I'd talk and ask her about foods and this and that. And one time I asked her for any like traditional wisdom things that her ancestors did or grandparents did or such, or cleanses near the seasonal changes. She's like, oh yes, Laura, my grandmother, twice a year, I think they went to her house and they'd have to stay for a day or two. And she would give us this drink of neem. So the herb neem, Neem, she would give us this drink. It was so strong. Me and my brothers and sisters, we couldn't stand it. We had to drink the thing. And then she's like, we'd go to the bathroom so much that next day. And it was just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, amazing wisdom. So they just knew they had to do that at least twice a year. So it could have had more than neem in it, that she knew about that, but it sounded like it was a thick, potent, tough to get down thing, but they had to do it. So, I love it because this was just a little tidbit, but I'm like, it's priceless wisdom because probably a good chance today the current grandmothers are not assigned to giving the neem juice to the grandchildren.
Oh, I hope that tradition and that wisdom isn't lost and you're part of keeping it alive. So thank you for being a part of the main interview and this mini-sode. We're grateful for you, Laura.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hilda, for all you do.
Finally, we hear from Mary Holland, President and General Counsel of Children's Health Defense. On episode 448, What You Need to Know About the Latest COVID mRNA Shot, Mary spoke about the risks of the latest shots. In today's mini-sode, she tells us more about the work and mission of Children's Health Defense and how we can benefit from their many resources. Welcome to the mini-sode, Mary.
Hi, Hilda. Yeah, I just want to tell people what we're doing at Children's Health Defense. We're doing a lot of different things. So we work in education, advocacy, science, and litigation. And we have a daily newsletter that's free, The Defender. We source everything we publish, Hilda. It's really a newspaper about children's health, but about all the toxic exposures that we face, the censorship that we're facing, news that you're not going to get anyplace else. We also have content on our website, childrenshealthdefense.org, from CHD TV every day. We have Good Morning CHD every day at 10 a.m. And again, we're diving into the news, but we're doing some great interviews with people that I think these listeners would be interested to hear from. Then on the advocacy side, we have chapters around the world, but we have a chapter in most states in the United States. And that's a way that you can get together with your tribe and you can really do things in your home state and support the larger organization and just connect with like-minded people, which is so important. I've been deeply involved with litigation in the past. I'm now the president and more sort of focusing on the institution as a whole, but we've got about 50 lawsuits, censorship that relate to medical exemptions, that relate to mandates of COVID shots for children and for adults. And we're still pursuing these, even though the COVID pandemic is over. It's critical that we fight these lawsuits to ensure that this can't happen again and that we take away these emergency powers that were exercised so injudiciously. And then we have our own science. We just published a book, Vax, Unvax, by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Brian Hooker. And it's a meta-analysis of 100 studies comparing health outcomes of people who've been vaccinated and unvaccinated. And the bottom line, Hilda, could not be clearer. And that is that unvaccinated people are healthier. They have not had these unnatural interventions with their immune system, and they simply are healthier people.
Well, and this won't come as a surprise to our listeners or folks who are members of the Weston A. Price Foundation, because we advocate looking to the past for good health today. And isolated Indigenous people groups that Dr. Price studied were thriving. They were radiant with health. They had a vibrancy about them that we're missing sorely today. And what we think is modern helps, popping pills or pharmaceutical drugs or different surgeries. I mean, I know some things are needed under emergency situations, but mostly these things are setting us back and we're deprived of the great, vibrant health that is our birthright.
Yeah, so we have a lot of great ways that people can connect, and almost all of it is completely free. You can become a lifetime member for $10, and that helps us if we want to bring lawsuits on behalf of people in those locations. And then we've got this bus that we just talked about, Hilda. We've got a bus traversing the country, the CHD bus, collecting stories of vaccine injury and injuries from all of these draconian COVID measures that we suffered over the last 3 years. So I encourage people to check it out, childrenshealthdefense.org, and use what's helpful.
Oh, well, what a great resource. I'm so glad our organizations are aligned, and we are thankful that you took this extra time today, Mary. Thanks again.
Likewise. Thank you, Hilda.
Our guests today were Adam Parker, Vani Hari, Judith Schwartz, Laura Villanti, and Mary Holland. Their websites are in the show description. And you can find me, as usual, at holistichilda.com. And the transcript for today's episode, along with the podcast episodes in their entirety, can be found at westinaprice.org on the podcast page. And now for a letter to the editor from a recent Wise Traditions journal. This is a letter about livestock vaccines. Thank you for your article in the summer 2023 issue on livestock vaccines. The distinction between antibiotics and vaccines is accurate. However, the toxins in the preservatives and boosters in vaccines are much more worrisome than the antibiotics in the food that we eat. Yet antibiotics are barred and vaccines are allowed in organic production. I understand that mRNA genetically engineered vaccine material is or will be used on animals, including livestock, which is a huge concern now that we know just some of the serious side effects of these. And since we also now know that vaccines largely just reduce symptoms rather than prevent transmission, it would be much more convenient with the organic model to bar vaccinated animals from organic labeling, while encouraging improved diet, exercise, and natural remedies consistent with organic farming. I am a certified organic farmer and have been for years. I have livestock, but do not sell the animals or animal products. Thank you for discussing this important topic. This is a letter from Christina from California. Thank you so much, Christina, for your letter. I hope we can do an episode on this issue in the not too distant future. And also, if you would like to receive a hard copy of our journal that comes out 4 times a year, become a member of the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's so easy. Go to westinaprice.org, click on the button that says Become a Member, and use the code POD10 to join for only $30 for the year. Some gym memberships cost $30 a month. You can join hands with us on research, activism, and education by becoming a member. Go to westinaprice.org and click on the Become a Member button and use the code POD10 to join for only $30 a year. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.